lots and lots of information about the offers that are available, and a fantastic case study from our colleagues at Barts and been working with Barts about how they've been supporting their colleagues who've been shielding. So please do say hello in the chat box. Say who you are, where you are today, one thing that you're doing to look after yourself during this time, and send it to all participants. While you're doing that, if we could move on to the next slide, there's a slide about staying in touch. And so we've still got our community on Tribe. We've got a newsletter. If you're not already on that, then please go back to the website, the Horizons website, where you got this link, and you can join us for our newsletter. You can tweet, and my colleague Lee Benson will be live tweeting throughout this session using the hashtag caring for, it's the number 4 NHS people. And if you have got any suggestions for other further sessions, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, Zoe Lord, no dots, at nhs.net. Ian, should we go on to the next slide? While people are introducing themselves in the chat box and saying hello, I thought it was a great opportunity to share up and coming webinars that we've got with the People Directorate. Over to you, Ian.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Zoe. So financial health, our own financial health and well-being, has never been more important than it is now. If you think about how people have been affected by COVID-19, some people have faced furlough, some people have faced redundancy. It's a really difficult time for people. We're running with NHS England then a series of webinars that look at personal financial health and well-being and how to look after yourself in difficult times. The next one runs tomorrow. It's 4 till 5 p.m. Joining details are on the Horizons website, as it is for this webinar this afternoon. Please do join us. We're going to be looking tomorrow about how to save, really, how to save up for your financial plans and how to make your money work. And all of this work is being done in conjunction with the Money Advice Service. So please do join us tomorrow afternoon for a session about how to make your money go further and how to realise your saving goals. Thank you, Zoe.
Thanks, Ian. We've had quite a lot of people joining those sessions, haven't we? So, and people coming back for more. So please do have a look at those and share them as well. So if you're just joining us, welcome. Please say hello in the chat box. Tell us who you are, where you are today, and one thing you're doing to look after yourself.
I can see a number of people have already joined the session. Really good to have you again. There's usually so much to share, so much to learn from each other during these sessions. So share with us your name, your role, where you're joining from, and some of those things you've been doing to support your health and well-being.
So we've got quite a few people saying that they've been knitting. I've started knitting. No doubt you've heard me speak about that before. Not very good, but enjoy it. We've got some people talking about cooking, and we've got Robin has started jumping on a mini trampoline. So we're going to be talking to Robin as well. Lots and lots of colleagues joining us, so please do say hello in the chat box, where you are today and what you're doing to look after your own well-being. So if you've joined one of these sessions before, you will see I'm in a different location. So I have just quickly run down the road, and I'm at my neighbour's. I'm in my neighbour's office. She is a trophy, and she engraves trophies, and she's very kindly moved out of her business so that I can have a little bit of internet today. So very, very happy to have very supportive neighbours. So hello to Pam, comms manager, part of Liverpool Trust, and Pam's been doing the couch to 5K. Fantastic, same as maybe change some notes with Elizabeth about. Yeah. Hello, Helen. You've been having a look at your heritage, and we've got lots and lots of people joining. So please do say hello in the chat box. We'll be using the chat box throughout our session today. So please do share your thoughts, comments, ideas with us today. So it's 4 o'clock. Welcome to this session all about health and well-being. My name's Zoe Lord, and I'm here with my co-facilitator, Elizabeth, and we're going to take you through this bumper edition, which I'm calling lots and lots of information on offers that are available to both yourselves, your colleagues, your staff as well. So if we could move to the next slide, Ian. So if you haven't joined one of these sessions before, these are our aims for today. We want to offer support, ideas, knowledge and wisdom to those involved in the health and well-being of our staff. We're going to be sharing a wide range of support offers that are available, and we're going to be connecting with each other. And we can do that via the chat box, via Twitter, the hashtag Caring for NHS People, and on our community platform after the session. Elizabeth, would you like to share our agenda?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Zoe. So hello, I'm Elizabeth Nyawade. I'll be co-facilitating today with Zoe. And on our agenda today, we have the usual overview of the National Wellbeing Offer. And we'll hear from Steve and Robin on that. And then we will also have a session on new peer-to-peer networks supporting our managers. And we'll hear from Alan Nobbs on that. And then we've got Bart's Healthcare Trust, who will be sharing with us some of the things they're doing in the organization, in particular, how they have supported their staff who are shielding. And I will hear from Kate, Mary Kate on that one, and Claire. And finally, it will be me and Zoe for a call to action and some closing remarks, and also sharing with you what is in line for the next session. Next slide, please. And on the team today, you've already met me and Zoe. Our contributors, we have a number of people in today's session who will be sharing with us lots of interesting information. We have Steve, Robin, Alan, Kate, Mary Kate, Claire, and John. And behind the scenes supporting the session today, we have our technical host, Paul. On the chat box, we have Karen and Louise. On YouTube, we have Ian and Lindsay. And on social media today, we have Oli. Next slide, please. So we are now going to begin by hearing an overview of the National Wellbeing Offer, and we'll hear from Steve, who will be followed by Robin. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me okay. If I could get the next slide, please. Okay, so the presentation lasts about 10 minutes, and I'll cover the existing offer on health and wellbeing for staff. We'll share the progress and where we've got to, and some of the work that is under development. And we're also putting out an ask for you to help us raise the profile of the offer to ensure that it's reaching the people who need to access it. If I could get the next slide, please. So we've received feedback that there's a lot on offer, and sometimes staff would appreciate some help to navigate through to the service that's right for them at a given point in time. So we're developing a brochure that's due to go live imminently, both on the website and to be sent out to our regional colleagues. And this gives you an overview of what that brochure looks like. So there's a contents page, and then if I could get the next slide, and there's an example of where that contents page takes you to. So under the Help Now section, it will guide you to our helplines, and we'll give you a summary of what you can expect to receive when you access those helplines. If I could get the next slide, please. So just in terms of access and use of our health and wellbeing offers, you'll see there that the website, sort of the front of house for the health and wellbeing offer, is incredibly popular. These figures are updated today, so they're fresh. And the numbers keep growing, so that's really encouraging to see. Anyone can access the website as well. You don't have to be a member of NHS staff, but anyone in social care or elsewhere can access our website and go through the range of courses and the offer there. We've had a significant number of app downloads. In addition to that, we've had people accessing our dedicated helplines. As well as those kind of offers, that the website, the helplines and the apps, We've also been running coaching and mentoring schemes, some common rooms which are hoping to expand, and our Twitter has been incredibly popular too. In addition to that, we're running some qualitative work as well to ensure that we hear the stories from people who have used the services, because some people respond well to numbers and that encourages them to access the service. Other people really warm to the stories that colleagues tell about accessing the health and wellbeing offer and the difference that's made on their lives. So we're working away on that, and we'll share those when they come to fruition. Often they're really powerful stories, and it encourages people who are usually the caregivers to seek care themselves when they need to. If I could get the next slide, please. We do have more to do. We know that some staff, when we go out to some of our colleagues, they're not aware of the offer, but when we tell them about, you know, kind of the extent and the what people can access, they're really impressed by it. But we're keen that that message gets out to a wider population group. And this is really important for us because we're keen to ensure that the foundation that we've got at the moment and the momentum that we've gained, we sort of galvanise that and deliver products that build on what we've got so far. So we're developing tools around health and wellbeing conversations, and Robin will talk a bit more about that in a moment. Work that's in the pipeline, not ready for publication or launch just yet, is around compassionate work through our civility and respect toolkit. And we're also working on violence reduction, for example, through a body-worn cameras pilot project and through violence reduction standards. I think it's really important to say that we're aware of the challenging environments that our colleagues are working in at the moment, and we don't want to introduce anything that's a burden. This is about providing support to staff, and the aim really is to provide practitioner sort of facilitator guides that are supported by quick setup materials that are easy to access for all. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you've got a piece of electrical equipment that's arrived recently, you'll know that it comes often with a very thick instruction manual and then a very quick setup guide too to get you going. So we're keen that those people who are into OD and are facilitators get that more detailed guidance. But also, if you're just, if you're a manager, you just want to have some hints and tips about how to start a conversation around a given area, we're keen to create those. So our desire is to support individuals and organisations in their aspirations, and we hope that then turns into the cultural norm. So the materials, I think this is massively important for us to emphasise here, are all about running alongside what the line manager's role, but they do not replace that, and that support that we know is pivotal. It's okay. Yeah, next one. Brilliant. So some planned communications. This is due out next week, and we're working with facilities managers and others to ensure that these posters go up to direct people to kind of the three main elements of our offer, or the three main ways of accessing the offer. So that's through the helplines, through the tech service, and through the website. So hopefully you'll be able to see those soon. And again, it's just to reinforce and to raise the profile of the area of the offer and to encourage people to access it. So you will see there that we've engaged with the Behavioural Insights team, who have said to us, to use language around, kind of normalising people accessing the offer. So the 300,000 figure that you see there. We're also keen as well to emphasise the confidential nature of the offers that we've got, and that they're free. Other thing to say is as well, there's going to be about 8 different types of posters there, so people should be able to kind of recognise themselves in those posters. If I could get the next slide, please. So what else is coming up? I doubt, well, I can't read that slide myself, so apologies. We will get a better version of that if you can't see it. But we've been doing some work as well around secondary stressors and around, sort of developing a comprehensive health and wellbeing offer. So some elements around that, we've been speaking to the Invictus Games, who are going to help us develop a physical health offer for staff of all abilities, recognising that we're going into the winter period, daylight hours are diminishing, so we're keen to get an offer that kind of staff can access and can use irrespective of their ability, and something that kind of they can do with their families too. As well as the work that's already been indicated around advice around finances, we're doing work with Relate to support people around the families and their dependents, so that support programme is due out soon. And the final thing to mention on this slide is around our mental health and wellbeing hubs. So the mental health hubs, in a nutshell, will provide you with rapid access to evidence-based psychological support services. And the enhanced occupational health and wellbeing offer is to deliver occupational health and wellbeing in the round. Both of these significant projects both have a regional focus, and that's really important. So, for example, on the enhanced occupational health and wellbeing offer, the regions are talking to us about what's needed, where they are. So the London bid, for example, for funding spoke about the work they'll be taking forward to respond to the BAME community and the issues that are there. If I could get the next slide, please. So the things that you can do to help us would be to communicate out the offer to those who you work with. Those 3 access points I've already referred to, so the helpline, the text line, and the website. And if you can help us raise the profile and ensure that we get the help and support to those who need it, it'd be really appreciated. We've set a bit of a goal there to ask you to share what you've heard today with 20 or so colleagues. That would hugely help us to raise the profile and ensure that the offer is there, that's available to all within NHS, is received, and we can grow from that basis. That's all from me. Thank you very much for listening. And I'm going to hand over to Robin now, who's going to talk about health and wellbeing conversations. Thank you.
Hello, and thanks so much for having me on the call today. So I am Robin. I've been working and I'm very excited to be able to share with you a piece we've been developing to support how we think about and have health and wellbeing conversations. So as you know, the People Plan, developed within the People Directorate under the leadership of many senior leads, including John Drew and other colleagues also on our call today, outlines health and wellbeing conversations as an integral part of supporting our NHS people. And this support has never been more important, as we know. So as we respond to the impact that COVID-19 has already had and will continue to have, and as we also head into winter and the extra pressure and this season will innately bring. So the health and wellbeing conversations. Next slide, please. So we wanted to be able to offer something by way of support that was more than just a tick box exercise. So we've focused on supporting how we think about having health and wellbeing conversations. So we know at their heart, these are opportunities for 2 people to connect with each other and have a quality conversation. So we know that the quality of this connection between 2 people is what's most important. And then what we know is from there we can build into supporting each other in terms of building a plan to manage the impact of COVID and other high impact working situations. So it's not time limited to the pandemic, but something that we want to become part and parcel of our normal business as usual. And we know that we know that resilience lies in teams. So these conversations are a space to offer listening and support to each other, to make sure that people know how to access any extra support they might need. So whether that be through the National Health and Wellbeing offer that Steve's just spoken about, or other local support initiatives within organisations such as employee assistance programs or occupational health. It might be through connecting with local staff networks or accessing the flexible working or carers passport programs, just to name a few. So next slide, please. So when we're talking about health and wellbeing,
we need a plan for how to get students.
Hello and welcome back. It looks like we just had a moment of disruption there, but I think we're all coming back into the main room there. So welcome back. I will just find the slides again. Let me just see if my tech colleagues, either Lindsay, Ian, or Paul could maybe put the slides back up for us. That would be super. And then we'll come straight back to you, Robin.
I'll check you've got the slides. Have you got the slides
yes.
back? Thank you.
I can see them. Have you got me?
We've got you. Thank you.
Excellent. No problem at all. So welcome back, everybody. So we were just talking about the offer. So what's on offer in terms of health and wellbeing conversations? The offer is twofold. We have the implementation support for NHS executives already live on people.nhs, which is a piece that aims to help organisations think about how to manage adding these to our business as usual. If you haven't already had a look at that, check it out. We'll add the link in the chat. But we've also developed a second piece, which is our focus for today, aimed at those who will be holding these conversations for others. So we've built this this learning piece in partnership with an oversight group, which has included clinical experts, senior health and wellbeing leads from across the NHS, and learning and development advisors. And it's evidence-based. So using the restorative model of restorative resilience model of supervision by Dr. Sonia Wellbeing, we've used that evidence base to look at what makes for a really restorative conversation to happen between two people. So the learning piece includes key principles of what is a health and wellbeing conversation, and what are some important things to keep top of mind, including who can facilitate them. So we've used the word facilitator because we know that it's not, it might likely be a conversation that happens with the line manager, but we know that line managers might not also always be the best person for it. So that might be because somebody might want to have a conversation with somebody they feel like they connect to a bit better about these topics, or similarly, it might be that a line manager might not feel they're in the right space to be able to hold this for another person, and that's okay as well. So we talk about facilitators because it might also be another trusted person at work who holds this conversation for an individual. We also looking at other key principles like you don't need specialist training. We've got some kindness and compassion is what's most important, but then we've also included some extra learning support to help build some confidence and capability. So they're things like we'll have access to information about React training, or we've got some extra learning to help recognise when somebody's struggling. And we've also got a guide to help think about compassionate listening skills and helpful things to do and say when supporting somebody else, which has been written by our friends, the Samaritans. Really at their heart, we know that we've made a conscious effort to avoid being too prescriptive or adding too much detail. We know time is precious, particularly as wave 2 and winter pressures are increasing. So we've aimed to make this piece as easy to access and digest as possible. So next slide, please. So quite simply is a where to from here. So again, I've already mentioned, head over to people.nhs if you haven't already had a read through the piece available for supporting NHS executives and organisations. And then stay tuned. So from tomorrow, we'll have available this second piece, which is support for facilitators. And we'll be live on people.nhs tomorrow under the guides and bite-sized learning tab. So that's all for me for now. Thank you so much again for having me. I hope there'll be something really helpful and that would really help support how we think about these conversations available in there. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Robin, and thank you, Steve, as well. I'm just going to come over to the chat box and Karen and Louise, is there anything that's coming out of the chat box that you'd like to bring into the conversation?
Hi, yeah, no, just that I think people have been using some of the apps, which is great, and so we're using some of the resources. Happy birthday to Seema, but she's been using Unmind, and Penny's been using Headspace. And then some ideas coming up the chat box. One that I really liked was from Lindsay about putting the offers on a lanyard or a credit card so that staff have got the offers with them. So some great ideas and some sharing of how people are using the resources.
Thanks, Karen. Louise, did you see anything different, similar, anything that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I think lots of sharing of tips and that sort of thing as quite often happens. So thank you everybody for engaging in those conversations. As the conversation was taking place around the brochure, there were some queries about whether there would also be flyers or posters that could be printed and affixed to staff notice boards or you know, in staff areas and that sort of thing. So it'd be helpful to know if there's other stationery available and whether the brochure is in a printable format as well.
Fabulous. Thanks, Louise, and thanks, Karen. So we'll be answering those in the chat box. All the offers are available on people.nhs.uk. There will be electronic flyers and the electronic brochures, and things will be able to be printable as well. So I'd just like us just to take a moment in the chat box, whether you're with us in Zoom today or whether you're in YouTube with us. Please do let us know how you would like the offers displayed. So you told us and we listened that you wanted a brochure, you wanted posters. What else would you like? We've got lots of comments already. So please do add any ideas that you can offer Steve and the team about how you would like these offers to be publicised. So please do add to both chat boxes for us. So moving on to our next speaker, Alan Nobbs. So if we could have the next slide. Lovely, thank you, Ian. So we've been doing a lot of listening from these sessions. So we've had 110,000 words in the chat box. We've been, lots of people have been tweeting as well. We've had something like 31 million impressions, and lots of people have been tweeting thoughts, ideas, how they've been using their offers. And people have been asking, can we have this or can we have that? And lots of people, what we've been finding is lots of people have been asking about management specific offers. So from that, we've been thinking about what other offers can we develop that will support our managers, because managers are having lots and lots of different requests these days that maybe they haven't had before. So maybe it might be about how do we support shielding staff, or how do we support staff who are self-isolating. And if we can go on to the next slide, Ian. Last night, Seema, whose birthday it is today, tweeted me, and we were asking, I was asking, what is it? What do you need help with? And this is the tweet that came back. So thank you, Seema. And what is on her mind is about how we can best support team leaders who are trying their best to check in with colleagues who are self-isolating, but also juggling their day-to-day operational pressures and trying to support colleagues on site. And it just feels impossible to do it all. Now, this is what's happening in Seema's organisation, but no doubt it's happening across the country. So what we've been thinking about is how do we develop a new offer that specifically looks at all of the support that we need to provide for our managers. So if we go on to the next slide, Alan, you're going to tell us a little bit more about this offer.
Thanks very much indeed, Zoe. And I think where I'd start from is I work in this field. I'm as close to the National Health and Wellbeing offer as it's possible to be. And I'm really delighted that it's there. And I myself use the apps and have dipped in and out of bits of the offer. And I have the very real privilege of being able to access these webinars. But I'm also a line manager, and once it moves beyond me and me thinking, what do I need for me? I increasingly have a sense of anxiety about the overwhelming responsibility that I have as a formally accountable leader for teams of people to make sure that they are also well able to take care of themselves. And despite our very best intentions and all the fabulous work that Steve and Robin and have described and others on this call have been involved with, I immediately get anxious. What am I supposed to help people with? Is it one of those reflective conversations? Is it a leadership circle? Is it a common room? Is it financial advice they need? And all of a sudden, I'm overwhelmed by the plethora of offers and my sense of a lack of potential insight or skill in this space to really know where I might start. And that's why I'm delighted to be part of this kind of experiment, if you like, this new way of thinking about how do we support people like me who might be struggling to take care of themselves, but also helping them to take care of themselves and becoming more sighted upon how they can help their individuals in their teams. particularly as we head into winter, particularly as we head into the sort of second wave of COVID. And Seema's tweet really speaks to me, because I find myself caught up, struggling to separate myself from the busyness of my day and to find time to have the important conversations. And when I do, I can often feel alone. So we're not seeking to build something new here necessarily. We're not seeking to put ourselves in competition with the fabulous work of the health and wellbeing team. Far from it, we're trying to galvanise all of that. And for line managers particularly, but for their teams as well, to help put that in one space and start to give people agency about how they can help themselves and others navigate this complex world. So we're looking to develop what we're calling, through a working title, Channel M, developing a peer-to-peer network of like-minded people, those that are out there on the front line of services or in their homes on the day-to-day, delivering the day-to-day work, and connect them so that they can learn from each other and support from each other and support each other in looking after themselves and helping themselves to look after their teams, in part with support from us. So helping them with things like leadership circles training, React training, and all of those kinds of things that we've been talking about on these webinars for some time, but also learning from them, hearing from them and saying, this is our very best guess at what we as experts and we in lofty positions think you need. If we were to ask you the question as a line manager, as a jobbing frontliner, what do you actually need? What do you actually want? What have you already got that just having a network to go and chat it through with somebody would help you realize and unleash your potential? How can we amplify what you're already doing and capable of? And if there's bits missing, where do you think we could help? What do you think we could give you? So we're launching Channel M, M for mobilization, actually mobilizing the people themselves rather than giving them the gifts of our inventions. We're mobilizing Channel M for managers, people out there who might be feeling that extra burden, but who need permission and help to amplify or to build their resource and capability and agility to step into that space where it's as okay to slow down, have coaching style, mentoring style, facilitated style conversations, and to helpfully allow people time to do that for themselves. Over time, we hope to grow this into a community from that peer-to-peer network of people who say, I'd like to give even more. We know from some work we've done in leadership and lifelong learning, many people are saying, I'm ripe, I'm championing, I'm at the bit. I want to be able to give more. I want to have coaching conversations with people. I want to mentor people. I just don't know that I'm allowed to, or that I can, or that I have the skill. So we're very much hoping to develop a cadre of people through Channel M and through our peer-to-peer network who increasingly want to step out there and say, I'm the human face of leadership for well-being. If you're struggling, if you want a safe space to have a conversation, be helped, be guided, be signposted, then you can come to me as a human being. So that's roughly where we're at in our thinking. It's very early. It's turning our organisation on its head and trying to go to the people first, speaking to the point that Steve raised. How do we start to have discussions with the people that we're building our resources and support for, rather than thinking just about how do we advertise them more creatively? So a couple of questions, if I could have the next couple of slides slowly, please. What I'd love to hear from you in the chat box is, what kind of things do line managers actually need help with now as we head into winter, from a health and well-being and supportive stance? And the second slide. And how can managers help each other peer-to-peer in their own organisations and across the country, transcending their boundaries? So what do they need now, and how can they help each other? And I'll leave you with a build on Steve's call to action. Steve said, could you help us by having a conversation with 20 people after tonight and share with them what you've heard and learnt? I'd have an extra ask on top of that. If you could have a conversation with just a few people that are struggling with their line manager responsibilities out there in their everyday lives, what kind of conversation would you need to have with them to make them want to join you when we next come together in our next health and wellbeing webinar? How do we start to get the people who don't see this webinar as being a space for them, who think that's for other people? How do we get them into this community? How do we start to have a conversation with them? I'd like to challenge each and every one of you to think about, why does this matter to you? And how might you connect with somebody to understand why it matters with them, and call them to action? Call them to join you on our webinar next time we join. So I'll pause there. That's all I wanted to say. I'm happy to sort of take any immediate thoughts or reflections from the chat box if Louise or Karen want to add any thoughts or challenges in. But this is very much the start of a conversation and not the end. And really just how do we bring it together and make it make meaning collectively and not just in one direction. So I'll pause there. Thank you.
Fab. Thank you ever so much, Alan. Ian, could we go back one slide, please? I am really, really keen to hear a little bit more about this through the chat box. So the urgency is now. We are hearing that people need help and they need support, and you're far closer to this than I am. So please do tell us in both the chat box in Zoom and YouTube what kind of things managers need help with now. We need to move quickly on this, and we are committed to moving quickly on this to ensure that you and your people, your peers, your network, your friends, your family, whoever else is working in health and care, we need to get this right now. So the time is now to do tell us what you need and what they need. We're going to pick in all of these up, and we're going to be contacting you as well if you want to be contacted about them. Let's see what we can provide very, very quickly for people. And then the next slide, Ian, as well, is you know, how can we help managers help each other? So this is like peer-to-peer. So is it, you know, how can they help each other in their organisation and across the country? So we're going to have, sorry, Ian, Alan.
I just wanted to say, Zoe, fabulous, and thank you for picking up. And I was just trying to cycle through really quickly. I saw something from Leanne. She says, something that keeps circling in my head is about the one thing people might need is the one thing we cannot give them. Sometimes people need a hug. How do we dress all of this fabulous stuff up in that hug and that physical contact? And I think that's what we want to get to the nub of. When I've spoken to people like Jacqueline Davies and others on the call today about this emerging thinking, this is about very much how do we bring the real human connectedness and humanity into this space in as physical a way as possible right now. And of course, in COVID world, we can't physically hug people, but how do we help people get as close to that in as real a world opportunity as possible? Because many people are sharing spaces in organisations, particularly in our hospitals and our primary care facilities and so on. But equally, how do we get people skilled in those spaces if they're dealing with people like me right now, sitting at home, helping me realise that all I need is to go and connect with somebody else in my circle, my bubble, that I might actually get a physical hug from. So I think there's a real humanity that we want to bring into this, but we don't want to assume. So we really want to hear from the people about what really matters and what they think can work for them and their context.
Thank you very much, Alan. A really, really important subject, especially for people like me who are on the ground dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. I think for me, the biggest challenge has been supporting line managers on how to deal with the new phenomena of managing people who are working from home. That has thrown up more challenges than we could have imagined. So if you bear that in mind, that would be really, really welcome. And thank you once again, a really, really important element there. Thank you. So we're now going to move on and hear from colleagues about some of those things they've done to support staff who are shielding. We've got a team from Barts Health NHS Trust. We've got Kate, Mary Kate and Claire, who are going to share with us some of those things they put into place so that we can learn from them and just ask as many questions as possible and see what we can take away from this team. Over to you, Kate. Next slide, please.
So I think I'm going to set off first. So hello, my name is Mary Kate. And also actually, Alexis, can you unmute yourself and say hello as well, actually?
Hi, I'm Alexis Pala and I work for Cardiff University, but I've been supporting the Barts initiative. So if you see someone in the chat typing, that's most likely me. And that's, yeah, so I'm going to post some questions into the chat as we kick off. Thanks, Mary Kate.
So yeah, so Alexis has been part of our core group as well. So I'm going to ask Alexis to pop 2 questions. So the first question is the chat, and I'll give people sort of 15, 20 seconds to sort of think about it. So have you managed to work with or supported somebody who's clinically vulnerable, extremely clinically vulnerable, also known as shielding in the first surge? And do you think there's a stigma or negative perception attached to shielding or having returned to shielding or having been clinically vulnerable? And we'll sort of pick that up a little bit. So what's your experience of working with and supporting staff? So where did we start? We're just going to talk this through. Bart Shield is a health and wellbeing initiative for staff who are shielding. And it was really clear earlier, the impact of lockdown nationally for everybody was going to be a disruption of our social networks. And anybody who's involved in health and wellbeing know that social networks and social capital is a really key, important preventative mechanism for all sorts of things, social inequality, health problems, mental health problems and things like that. So I was really struck by what would happen when we lost our work family. I was sent home on the 23rd of March. I've been back to hospital 3 times since then. You break me in half and I say NHS. So what happens when we lose the physical contact of our work families? What Alan and the other people were talking about in the other presentation about hugs and how people need them. So I very sort of coincidentally was on a call with Alexis on the first national virtual call of the Liberate and Structure community, which I'm part of. And I was really struck and surprised by how much emotional contact you could have online. And Liberate and Structures was the technique that we used to create that safety and connection with strangers very quickly. So that's what we sort of set out to do. Do you want to go to the next slide? Go to the next slide after that is fine. So we started with shielded members of staff because actually they were most open to this idea of using liberating structures to create a virtual community. And we sort of had 3 main developments. We started some formal spaces, which we call the Connect, which started to be about emotional and social connection. And from that space, we drew out a core group of shielding staff and peers who would help us drive the program forward. So Alan's talk about using peers and managers, we've sort of tested that concept with the shielders and what happened. So we created a couple of formal spaces. Connection, next steps is about all the changes in policies and trying to stay in touch with the trust. And then on the left-hand side, on the blue bubble on Connect, if you could see, we recognise we had over nearly 650 staff who are shielding at Barts. We've got 16,000 who work for us, 24,000 if you talk about the wider health economy. So connecting with them was really difficult. So we ended up with Facebook, newsletters, choirs. And then the third big initiative was about actually using the shielding staff as a resource. So staff were trained in facilitating online events, and they were used as part of our, what we called Harvest the Learning. So our first wave of learning from the first surge. We've been supporting Band 7 developments, managers training. We've run a couple of sessions with hematology staff and patients with blood disorders to think about what digital health will look like in the future. So that's sort of what we've been trying to do. And what I'm going to do now is pass over, I think, next slide. You can get this in the slide pack. This is what we've done in terms of inputs and outputs and in numbers and sort of volume and space. So next slide. This is our challenges, which I think Claire's going to talk to you a lot of these as well, but they're in the slide pack so that you can come to them. So now I'm going to introduce Claire, who's one of our peers. Hi, Claire. Next slide. Perfect.
Hello there, hi. Thanks,
Hi,
Mary
Claire.
Kate. Hi. So my name's Claire and I'm a shielding member of staff. I'm clinically extremely vulnerable due to a transplant. Oh, can we go back to the previous? Thank you, that's brilliant. And so I'm really in the middle of these 4 sections. I just really want to talk about the shielding experience as an NHS employee. And I'm going to start first from the personal impact. It's a very diverse community, and obviously a lot of us are shielding for very different reasons. But the one thing that's really important is that although we are working from home, we're also shielding. So in that first wave, we weren't going out. There was a huge mental health impact of that. And, you know, now we're going back in again to our homes. And, you know, we're distancing from our children, from our families. There's a big burden on that, as well as maintaining working from home, which is, as we all know in the NHS, a very new experience. So we're not just working from home, although some of our learnings can be transferable. On the professional side, you know, I was lucky, I could work from home, but I also was able to help the Trust with its helplines and getting involved in the shielding programme. So actually I was very involved, but what came through loud and clear was the gap between those of us that had the technology at home. We could get hold of soft tokens, we could do that, and those that perhaps didn't have anything to do during that time but were desperate to do something. They really wanted to support their teams and support the Trust and support the NHS. And you know, I think what's really important for managers and the organisations is to think about how the language and how we frame shielding people that we have in our teams. I think it's really important. There's been a lot of negativity around shielders and an us and them, those of us that stayed on site, those of us that were shielding. And it's about how we bring those teams back together, because fingers crossed, a vaccine is on the horizon and we will be back on site. And we need to be in a team space where we're all going to be working together for the benefit of our patients. So, you know, I think it's about language and tone, and those are really simple things that can be done within teams. So really important, you know, words like, oh, you've been on holiday, watching Netflix, the shirking shielders, all really unhelpful. What I would go on to say as well is about the shield. You know, the work that we've done, the peer support work that we've done has been a lifeline. It really has, for those of us that are at home. And it provided a communication with the Trust so that policies, you know, support was all there. We could feed back to the Trust very easily. So when we had our next steps calls, we were able to feed back to OccuPational, unions, HR. And it was really, really productive, and it really helped people feel less alone, more plugged into the system. It was really, really important. And the connection space was much more about peer support and supporting each other through those difficult days. So I think, you know, in terms of thinking about how the positive side of that for the Trust overall and to managers is that through Facebook and through those groups, we've actually headed off a number of problems that could have ended up in quite serious tribunal situations, have been headed off very early because we could see those issues surfacing and we were able to give voice to them and resolve them before they got to that stage. So the key takeaways, we're going into our second lockdown now. It'd be great if we could learn to get ahead of this so that when we have staff that have to be at home, we have IT ready to go. We have a core where that we can say, okay, you can't do your role, but actually this work that needs to be done in the Trust. And actually there's a process that goes into place so that we're not leaving this really untapped resource of people. You know, those of us that are able to work is great, but those that can't are being left wanting desperately to do something in support, and they're not being able to. So there's a gap. So it'd be great to close that gap so we can all work productively when we are forced, as we are at the moment, back into our home spaces. So that's a whistle-stop tour. Thank you very much. And I'm passing over, I believe, to Kate.
Hello, thank you. Hello, my name's Kate. If I just tell you a little bit about our next steps and our thoughts. So first of all, I got involved in this work as a person that uses liberating structures, and I'm part of the London network. But it also just happens that I work in emergency care in NHS England, and Bart Trust is one of my sites. So it became this real project, this work of joy, because working with such an amazing bunch of people that had such empathy and compassion for their peers and their staff across the site it was brilliant. It was just something, and it brought real lift my spirits throughout the crisis of COVID. So what the others haven't mentioned is that since this work has started, they've actually been nominated or shortlisted for a Nursing Times Workforce Award, which we're so delighted about. But with this nomination has also brought lots of new conversations as people have learnt about the work that they've been doing. And we've had inquiries from Ireland, from across England, from local teams and teams within NHS England and NHS Improvement. And that really kind of helped us to explore that, what does this mean to others, and how we can, can we create scale, can we create spread, and what does this actually mean? And when reflected on what actually does it mean to the shielders, it's the two things that I always have been saying to other teams is, if you're going to work on this, you really need to think about, first of all, how you're going to support the staff with their physical and mental health and their well-being. And then the second thing that you must think about if you're going to do this work is about how you can create a culture where staff feel valued for their contribution, even if they're not seen physically up and present on the building. And this was really important, as Claire has already pointed out, that some of the language that has been used by others for staff is just been shocking. So we need to eliminate that. And across this, when we think about spread, it's important that we think about what the impact is. We just don't scale to become this great, enormous thing, but actually we're thinking about the impact and how it helps individuals and teams to become more effective in what they're doing. And, to do this, we mustn't think about, creating something that with KPIs. We must stick to the values of what this work is, and that's about supporting our staff to feel cared for in their workplace. So, options that we've thought about as we've moved forward is how we can use this in other settings. Yes, it was set up for a pandemic, but there are also many groups of staff that are not seen on site. They're at home. They might be because they're on career breaks, or it might be that they're on maternity. And there's also a large group of staff that may be on long-term sick. So maybe this is where we can use this to actually use it to support staff, allow them to still feel connected with their work colleagues and their workplace, and allow them to feel cared for as we move forward. So I just want to say about this image, because I think what this really, I chose this image because I thought I'd share it with everybody, because it really makes me think about the pandemic and how it's kind of literally turned things upside down, and the need to look at things through different lenses and different viewpoints. And through that, we can become more creative and actually, work with others and come up with divergent ideas and create new opportunities for everyone. So at this point, I'm going to hand back to Mary Kate.
So it's just to sort of say that actually we've been a real sort of network and a peer group that hasn't been possible without the support of peer staff themselves following their own energy. So Claire, for example, manages our Facebook page. It would not be it is not something that I would do. Social media is not my strength. So Claire and George totally manages that. There's been the newsletter. So people have sort of followed their energy. We've had a relationship, and sort of our HR team and our trade union reps have been really embedded in next steps. We wouldn't have been able to have done that without the support of the formal structures in the trust. Wouldn't have been able to have done it without the help of the Liberate and Structure community, who Happy Computers have offered us training. The Liberate and Structure facilitators have volunteered their time and they've come in. So that's just been amazing. And I'll just hand over to Alexis as a sort of non-traditional, came to the UK 8-9 months ago from America and South America, and her experience of the NHS, because her expertise in helping us sort of build the capacity and the Liberate and Structure facilitation has been amazing. So Alexis, I'll let you sort of just offer your reflections.
I'll just do this really quickly. I guess my biggest points are that there's no recipe for authentic connection, and it was quite difficult to have us achieve this humane kind of human space online, and we were kind of doing trial and error as we went along, and there was no kind of precedent for what we were doing. And I think it's actually still to this day quite difficult for us to express and capture every kind of the human effects that we've had on people and quantify that in some sort of way. But I think that, like, what I think I replied to Leanne in the chat, that I think we might not be able to give people a hug, but what we can do is listen, and having people feel psychologically safe. And the way that we measured it this time was by feeling, each call we asked people if they felt heard, seen, and heard, valued, and respected. That allowed us to get a good sense of how people were feeling in receiving our space. And then I think people from there vote with their feet. And I think, I think authentic connection was the most powerful thing. And I think it wasn't an easy thing, because people's tech wasn't working. We had to do a lot about learning how to get people online and connecting in those ways. And we would be more than happy to speak to you all about those learnings. So I'm going to hand it back to Zoe, I believe.
Thank you very much. Really interesting listening to all of you. Incredible lessons there for us to learn. Thank you again. I'm now going to invite John Drew to offer some reflections. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Well, I'm just really impressed, to be honest. I think the story that we've just heard, for me, is powerful, because something that could have felt like it was a thing going wrong turned into something that went incredibly right. I guess the three things that struck me from it, one was this whole emphasis on connection. And what Alexis has added is not just any old connection, but authentic connection. So just recognizing that people going through a shared experience needed support, taking it seriously, putting the kind of attention probably into caring for each other that normally we put into caring for patients. And I think it's amazing what you've done with the time. So not just found the minimum thing to do to be useful, but actually learnt new skills, started contributing to the organisation in ways that you probably wouldn't have imagined before. That also makes me see the value of space, because, as Alan said earlier when he was talking about helping managers, it's actually quite hard to do some of this if we're just always busy. So one of the things that happens when we stop or when we slow down is you start asking yourself questions, reflecting, and then that leads to a different kind of action. So I think the whole connection thing, I think, is very powerful. And the fact that some of the people that were shielding, for example, took the lead on harvesting the learning, because there's masses of learning at the moment. But it's, the risk is if it's happening all around you and you're busy, you don't really notice it. So having people that were one step removed able to do that, I think, is brilliant. The second word that struck me actually is kindness, which I don't know if anyone actually said it, but I think a lot of what you described was about being kind to each other, and also the damage that it can be that it does to be unkind to each other. And one of the pieces of work that I'm responsible for through Radhika is on the webinar I think is leading, is on civility and respect. And civility and respect is a kind of label that we've given in the NHS to overcome bullying and harassment. But in the end, civility and respect is also kind of not necessarily everyday language. And in the end, I think a lot of it comes down to kindness. How can we be kind to each other? And it's actually very powerful when we are. I think an observation I've long had about healthcare is that we can put all of our love into patients and there's kind of none left over for each other. So I think we need to just think a little bit about the distribution of how do we make sure that we're caring for each other and taking the time to be kind. And the last word is actually about recognition. That I think that in some ways, a lot of what happens in the NHS is absolutely fueled on recognition and celebration. So when something's going well, we take the time to recognize it, to thank people. You talked about receiving an award. The Health and Wellbeing offer that NHS-EI has developed has also received an award from personnel today, and it gives everyone a lift, doesn't it, when it's recognised? And I just think that's something that we can do so much more with. And I think one of our goals over the winter is, while we've got all this focus on the health and wellbeing of staff, how do we harvest the learning in the language that you used? And then how also do we make sure that we're capturing things that are going well and keeping them in the future. And some of that is about recognition. I can see Mary Kate's correcting me to say you've got a nomination so far, not an award. Well, I can say that I hope you win it, because I thought the story was powerful, and thank you for sharing it with us.
John, I thought it was really interesting that you just pulled out the word kindness. That was on the top of my mind as well. And it's interesting, Kate Pound used to be a colleague of mine in Horizons, and Kate always chooses a word for the year, and one of the words was kindness one year. And we spent the whole year really thinking deeply about kindness. So it's lovely that you've pulled that out as well, John, in the work. So thank you. So thank you, John, and thank you ever so much, Kate, Mary Kate, and the whole team from Barts, and all of your colleagues that you work with. So many lessons there for us to learn from. What I'd love us to do in the chat room now is really have a little think about what are we going to take away from today. I started at 4 o'clock saying this was a bumper edition, and I think it has been, of different offers that you can take away. We've had many asks in that as well from both Steve and Alan, talking about what do you need from us? What more do you need from us in a central team? What more do you need from each other as well? And how can we facilitate that between you? So pop in the chat box, whether you're in Zoom or you're in YouTube today, please do share with us what you're going to be taking away from today. So I'm going to ask Louise and Karen, what are you seeing in the chat box? I'm seeing lots of thanks for the team at Barts.
Yeah, lots of thanks, kind of whizzing up, and you're already connecting with that message of kindness. So thank you for that, John. Interesting, other people, we had Lisa and Christy and Gemma sharing some of the things that their organisations have been doing. So creating space to chat for those who are shielding since May, and that being a really supportive space for people to share their experience and support one another, and WhatsApp groups specifically for shielding staff. So there can be that element of social chat that you might normally get, so that you can maintain those contacts and relationships that you might normally get in the workplace. So creating space for that. And really kind of recognising that shielding staff still have vital roles to play. And Christy, and saying that, you know, they're really asked how and what they can do, you know, and that's a much more positive way to think about it than what they can't.
Yeah, thanks, Louise. So we're going to have a poll. So Paul, if you wouldn't mind putting our poll up for us. So today, to what extent has today's session been useful in your own role, and how you support others as well? So poll should be on your screen if you're on Zoom. If you can't see it, please do add to the chat box. And if you're on YouTube, YouTube as well, yes, please do add to the chat box. So 1 is not very helpful and 5 is helpful. So please do also add to the chat box as well about any further comments that you'd like to add. So if we can close the poll, please, Paul. Lovely, thank you. And you should be able to see those on your screen now. And if we could close those. So I've got one more slide, I think, and 2 more things to tell you. So as we were speaking about extra events and more things that are available, we have on the next slide, Ian Baines was telling us earlier about this other People Directorate offer, which is all about finance and wellbeing. So you can find those details on the Horizons website, at the same website where you found the details for today. And the last slide for me, I think, or maybe the slide before. So our next wellbeing event is the 2nd Wednesday of the month, so that'll be the 9th of December. We do hope you can join us on the 9th of December. Please keep connecting with us on Twitter, through the community platform, via email, however you want to get hold of us. Please do be in contact with how we can help you. So we'll see you. And anybody else that you can bring with us, thinking about Alan's call to action, bring some other people, bring some line managers with you for our next session, which will be on Wednesday, the 9th of December. So thank you for joining us, as you always do. It's lovely to see all the photos of everybody on the screen, and hope you have a lovely evening, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Zoe.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So if you're part of the team, do stay on the line just for a moment. We'll go into the breakout. But